Hello everyone, it's Mr. Van here in a slightly more remote looking location. I wanted to reach out just around the upcoming post-secondary BC Day that's happening this Tuesday in just a couple days. This is the one that's done much more locally. I think, if I'm honest, students find on average that they get the most excited about the Canadian Universities event that we had in September. But in reality, I think this is actually the one that matters more. It's the one that just focuses on British Columbia post-secondaries, colleges and universities. And you're going to see some familiar faces and probably some ones you haven't. But I wanted to take a minute just to talk about the importance of this particular one and why I would encourage students. I mean, I know you're all going to go and you're all going to get some swag and it'll be a good time, but to really take some of them quite seriously. I think the university system, no fault of its own, does an excellent job of promoting itself. I think you can't find a Canadian 18-year-old that probably hasn't heard of UBC or McGill or University of Toronto. That is something that is to their benefit, and it's why the applications for those universities is so darn high. But in reality, getting into those directly out of high school is both incredibly difficult and not necessarily the right choice. And I think we, as a society, and I'll even include myself in this sometimes, we think of it as too important to try to go directly into one of these universities at the upper echelon, quote unquote. And then please notice that I have all the respect for what they do, and I've met incredible people, and I've had incredible students who go, but to recognize that there are incredible people in tons of post-secondaries. Just for example, I was at Langara this last Wednesday for their counselor day. I learned about how many of the Langara teachers are actually also teachers at UBC. It's like in the high school system where teachers often teach in multiple schools. Some schools have some reputations and notoriety, but in reality, we're pulling from very similar networks. That's not to say there aren't incredible professors in post-secondaries of all varieties across this country, but I really want to encourage students as we go into Tuesday's post-secondary fair to really think about broadening their understanding of what going to post-secondary might look like. And I want to speak specifically to one thing, and this is the university transfer model that is working on both sides, both colleges and universities. These aren't the only ones, but you may be familiar or may not be, and this will be helpful for you to know that local colleges in Vancouver, like Langara, Vancouver Community College, Douglas, KPU, Kwantlen, otherwise known as, have university transfer agreements with universities in our province, like UBC, UVic, SFU, and that by having no disadvantage of having gone to those colleges and others like it for 2 years, you can then apply into one of those three, UBC, SFU, and UVic, for your third year, having taken the exact same classes that you would have taken had you been at those universities for the first 2 years. Some advantages: it's easier to get into. Some of them are first requirements, first in. Langara is a perfect example. Another advantage is the cost of tuition. Our universities, still much cheaper than some other parts of the world, including our neighbors to the south, they are sometimes double what you might pay to go to a local college for the same 2 years of courses. And those courses, once you step into those rooms, are also much smaller. So a class size very easily for a first year university course in this province could be anywhere between 1, 2, 3, 400 students. Most colleges, post-secondaries in our province, emphasize having classes under 50, a lot of them running at 25, 30 even. That just doesn't happen on the scale that some of these big universities are operating on. Getting to know your teacher has some real value. I think it can be a bit of a shock for people when they go directly to university and they recognize that teacher's never going to know my name. There's 382 of us, and that's just a reality. So I really want students to think about the value of thinking, I may want to get a university degree for what I want to do after life, but that there's more than one way to get there, and that applying after the second year through university transfer is both easier as a bridge, cheaper, and easier to apply when you get in. The success rates and the grades required are lower applying out of second year out of these post-secondaries into a university than they are going direct. UBC just shared its information when Miss Leanne and I went to the UBC Counselor Day online back in September. The average mark for grade 12 academics, so that would include your Englishes, your maths, your sciences, and for some fields, social studies, 12 courses, with no electives included, The average was 95% to get into UBC science, and not one student, by their own admission for the 2024 year, got in with an average under 91. That was the absolute lowest. It's unrealistic for so many of our students to be thinking about this as the only path. And so I think that makes this post-secondary day even more impressive. Plus, to be honest, outside of the university transfer system, colleges are bringing it better than they ever have before. It's not to say that SFU, UVic, and UBC aren't doing incredible things, but the variety of programs exists across all post-secondaries. I think when ranked across both Canada and across the world, BC's never looked as good as it has, and I would encourage all of our students to take the extra time to just stop by all the reps and not get into that habit of going, oh, well, I won't be going to that one. So take it seriously, it's your future, and ask us if you need help.